It started with a dead phone battery. Strange how small things cause the biggest collapses. I left work 2 hours early that day. Not for any noble reason, just exhaustion. The kind that burrows deep under your skin and refuses to leave. I stopped at a gas station, grabbed an energy drink, and texted my wife, Madison, that I was heading home. The message didn't deliver. No big deal. Maybe she was on a call. Maybe she was busy. But when I turned into our neighborhood, something gnawed at me, a feeling that came not from panic but from the dead silence sitting beside me like an unwanted passenger. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the second car. A silver SUV. Parked crooked like someone in a hurry. A car I didn't recognize. I turned the engine off but stayed sitting there, heart slow but heavy, as if my own body already knew something my mind was scrambling to deny. I walked up to the front door. Unlocked. The house was too quiet, but the wrong kind of quiet, not peaceful. Breathing quiet. Hiding quiet. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The sound echoed way too loud in the stillness. There were 2 wine glasses on the living room table. Both half full, lipstick smudged on one rim. Someone's jacket was thrown over the arm of the couch, not mine. I didn't call out. I didn't make noise. I moved towards the stairs. And then I heard it, low murmuring from upstairs, and the kind of laughter Madison never gave to me anymore. A careless, flirtatious sound that seemed to bounce off the walls and slap me across the face. My hand brushed against the railing and I felt the smallest tremor pass through me like an earthquake too soft for the news but strong enough to shatter a single life. I went back to the kitchen instead. To breathe. To not do anything insane. And that's when I saw it, her purse wide open, her phone lying on top of everything. Forgetting every boundary, every ounce of dignity I thought I had, I picked it up. No passcode. I tapped on the newest messages. The first one, from someone saved as Nathan, a name she never once mentioned in our entire marriage, was so blatant it barely needed interpretation. Can't believe we're sneaking around like teenagers. Best afternoon of my life. Another message 3 minutes old. You're so much hotter when you lie to him. I scrolled up, my stomach a knot of glass shards. Photo attachments. A picture of her half-dressed, sitting on our bedroom floor. Not the bed, not a hotel or bedroom. The place we slept side by side for years while I stupidly believed I knew the woman lying next to me. And then, almost as an afterthought, I saw an email notification pop up. From a lawyer's office. Subject line, prenup nullification proposal. I opened it with the kind of grim inevitability reserved for reading your own obituary. She was planning to divorce me. Blindside me. Rip me apart financially. The only reason she hadn't yet? She needed a few more weeks to move her assets without my knowledge. She was playing house just long enough to destroy me cleanly. My ears rang. My pulse roared inside my skull. I put the phone down exactly where I found it. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't shout. I walked out of the house like a ghost who suddenly realized it had been dead for years. Across the street, sitting in my car again, I watched the house from the shadows. 10 minutes later, a man I had never seen before, maybe early 30s, smug in a business-casual kind of way, came down the stairs buttoning his shirt, followed by Madison, laughing like a teenager who just pulled off the greatest prank in history. They kissed at the door. Not a nervous kiss. Not the kiss of people scared of getting caught. A kiss so full of easy cruelty it could have been practiced. I wanted to vomit right there. Instead, I gripped the steering wheel so hard it felt like my fingers might fuse into the plastic. They separated. She watched him drive away, then turned around, perfectly calm, and shut the door. I knew at that moment, this wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't an I made a bad choice situation. Madison wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was enjoying every second of this. And for the first time, I realized maybe I didn't really know her at all. Not even a little bit. I didn't go back inside right away. I needed a plan, not another mistake. I sat there in the dark, staring at the house that was supposed to be my life, feeling something cold and methodical rising up through the chaos inside me. Not rage, not yet. Something sharper. Focus. I called her. She picked up on the third ring, voice as sweet and casual as if nothing had just happened. Hey babe, she said lightly. Everything okay? I swallowed the urge to laugh. Babe. The same word she used for him. It was almost insulting how little effort she put into hiding the overlap. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice steady. Forgot my laptop at home. Mind if I come grab it? A pause. A short one, just half a heartbeat longer than normal, but it told me everything I needed to know. Of course, she chirped. I was just about to jump in the shower. Make yourself at home. She hung up without waiting for a reply. I walked back to the front door, the same door he had walked out of 15 minutes earlier. I turned the knob slowly. Still unlocked. Inside, the house smelled different. Not like us. Like some cheap cologne fighting to dominate the air. I moved quietly through the kitchen, past the wine glasses she hadn't even bothered to hide, and up the stairs. I heard the water running in the master bathroom. For a second, I stood outside the door. Not listening, calculating. How do you confront a liar so deep in her own delusion that she believes the lie more than the truth? I opened the bedroom door. The bed was unmade. Sheets twisted, the smell of sweat still hanging in the air. A part of me, the part that still loved her, or at least loved the idea of her, died right then. It didn't scream or cry. It just quietly folded in on itself and disappeared. I sat down on the edge of the bed and waited. 3 minutes later, she came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair dripping wet, face fresh and unguarded. She froze when she saw me. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The silence stretched, pulling tighter and tighter between us until she broke first. You scared me, she said, laughing too brightly. You should have said something. I kept my eyes on her face. I wanted to see it. Every flicker. Every lie. Where's the laptop? I asked. She smiled, almost relieved. Downstairs. Kitchen table. Want me to grab it for you? I stood up slowly. She took a step back, towel clutched tighter around her chest like I was the danger here. No, I said quietly. I think you've grabbed enough today. The smile slipped. Confusion flickered. Annoyance followed a heartbeat later. What's that supposed to mean? She snapped, the fake sweetness evaporating in an instant. I stepped closer. It means, I said, voice low but steady, I saw your little boyfriend leave. It means I read your messages. It means I know about the prenup. The fake smiles. The lawyer meetings. She didn't deny it. Not even for a second. Instead, Madison rolled her eyes like I was a child making a scene over a spilled drink. God, you're so dramatic, she said, moving past me toward the closet. You weren't supposed to find out like this. The sheer casualness of it stunned me more than any confession would have. Like what? I asked, voice rising despite myself. By catching you 2 hours after you were rolling around in our bed? She laughed. Actually laughed. Soft, cruel, dismissive. Oh, grow up, she said, rifling through her clothes. What did you expect, really? You've been boring for years. Safe. Predictable. Like a freaking houseplant. I stared at her, feeling the words hit deeper than any slap. You're blaming me? I said, half laughing now too, but it was an ugly sound. She turned, pulling on a silk robe, the towel hitting the floor like some cheap metaphor for everything she was shedding. I'm explaining, she said, tying the belt tightly around her waist. You don't excite me anymore. You don't challenge me. Nate, he gets it. He knows how to make me feel alive. Nate? A name. A person. Real. I clenched my fists at my sides but didn't move. Good for you, I said, voice raw. So why stay? Why the games with the prenup? Why pretend? She smiled, that same poisonous smile she wore when talking to her friends about people she hated. Because, sweetheart, she said sweetly, half of everything you have belongs to me soon. Including the house. Including your little investment portfolio. You think I was gonna walk away from all that just because I got bored? Don't be stupid. The cruelty of it didn't even seem to register for her. It wasn't personal. It was business. I stared at her for a long moment, feeling a cold clarity settle over me like a second skin. This wasn't betrayal by accident. This was betrayal by design. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even hiding it. She was proud. And somehow that made everything simpler. I didn't speak for a long time. I let the silence stretch, almost savoring it, because silence was the only power I had left that she couldn't twist into something ugly. Madison moved around the room like I wasn't even there, pulling clothes from hangers, tossing them onto the bed, humming under her breath like it was just another lazy Sunday. That hurt more than all the words. Finally, I said, you're not getting a penny. She laughed without even turning to look at me. Please, she said, flinging a dress across the bed. You think some petty threats are gonna scare me? The paperwork's already in motion. You're just too dumb to keep up. I crossed the room in 2 steps and grabbed her wrist. Not hard. Not to hurt her. Just to make her stop moving, stop acting like this was nothing. She jerked away instantly, flaring with indignation. Don't you dare touch me, she spat, eyes flashing. You don't get to act like the victim here. The victim. I almost laughed at the word. You burned this down, I said, voice shaking not with fear but with a cold, rising fury. You set it on fire and danced in the ashes. She smirked. And you're the idiot who handed me the matches, she said. It was so brazen, so heartless, that for a moment I couldn't even feel anger, just a terrible, hollow amazement that I had ever loved this woman. That I had built a life with her. That I had trusted her. I know about the other thing too, I said quietly, watching her reaction. For the first time, the smirk faltered. What other thing, she said too fast. The file, I said. The family truth. Nice little title. Makes it sound almost innocent. Madison went completely still. No humming now. No casual movements. No fake boredom. Her eyes locked onto mine, calculating, measuring how much I knew. I took a step closer. Turns out, I said, voice low, you're not even who you say you are. Whole life story. Fabricated. Parents? Not who you claimed. College degree? Fake. That scholarship you bragged about for years? Never happened. The silence that followed was so sharp it felt like the air itself could shatter. She didn't deny it. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She smiled slowly like a mask slipping into place. Well, she said lightly, nobody likes a liar, do they? I stared at her, feeling the last threads of whatever connection we had snap one by one. You lied about your past to hook me, I said, hearing my own voice from a distance. You played the perfect girl, the perfect story because you thought it would get you a better life. And when you got bored, you decided to cash out. Her shoulders relaxed, almost like she was relieved I finally understood. Exactly, she said, smiling. And if you weren't so boring, maybe it would have lasted longer. It was the honesty that cut deepest. Not the lies. Not the betrayal. The simple, ugly truth that to her, all of it, every kiss, every memory, every promise had been nothing more than a strategy. I stepped back, suddenly exhausted. You're a parasite, I said quietly. You attach yourself to people who build things. And when you've drained them dry, you move on. She shrugged, completely unfazed. Survival of the fittest, darling, she said, tossing another dress into a suitcase. I turned away. Not because I was afraid she would see me cry. Because I knew she wouldn't care if she did. Somewhere deep inside, the man who once loved her died for good in that moment. Not with a scream. Not with a bang. Just a soft, final silence that felt far more permanent. I walked to the door. You'll hear from my lawyer tomorrow, I said over my shoulder. Madison didn't even bother to reply. As I stepped outside into the night air, the cool wind against my face felt almost like forgiveness. Almost, but not quite. The next morning, I didn't wake up in my house. I barely slept at all. Instead, I sat in the guest room of my brother's place, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind rattle the windows like some cruel reminder that the world outside kept moving, even if mine had just been wrecked. I thought maybe I would feel numb by now. Instead, it was worse, a heavy, gnawing ache that didn't dull or sharpen, just sat there, grinding away at every thought. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called my lawyer, Marcus. He answered on the first ring. You were right, I said. No hello, no small talk. Marcus was silent for a second, then sighed like a man who had seen too many versions of this exact nightmare. Come to the office, he said. We'll start locking things down before she gets aggressive. Before she gets aggressive. As if last night hadn't already been a declaration of war. I pulled into his office an hour later, still in yesterday's clothes, barely feeling my own body. Marcus met me at the door, tight-faced, sleeves rolled up like a general preparing battle plans. She's fast, he said without preamble, leading me into a small conference room. Her lawyer sent preliminary papers late last night. She didn't waste any time, I muttered, sitting down. Marcus nodded grimly. She's claiming infidelity, he said. I stared at him, the words not making sense at first. She's accusing me of cheating? Marcus slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside were photos. Blurry, grainy, obviously staged, but photos of me from months ago having lunch with a female coworker, Tessa, outside a crowded sandwich shop. A woman I barely spoke to outside of project meetings. A woman who, by pure dumb luck, happened to be married to one of Madison's ex-college friends, a detail I didn't even realize until now. She planted this, I said, stunned. She prepared for this months ago, Marcus corrected. She's been setting the chessboard long before you caught her. I shoved the photos back across the table, disgust boiling up inside me. She's a vulture, I said. No, Marcus said quietly. Vultures wait for things to die. Madison kills first. The day bled into paperwork and legal strategy, every line and clause a reminder that my life was being dismantled with clinical precision. By noon, it got worse. Marcus's assistant, Heather, knocked on the door with a tight expression. You're going to want to see this, she said, handing Marcus her phone. He frowned and turned the screen toward me. It was a social media post. Madison's account. Public. A picture of her and Nate, arms around each other at some downtown bar, smiling like they were starring in a Hallmark commercial. The caption. Sometimes you have to leave the past behind to chase your real happiness. The comments were already flooding in. Sympathy. Praise. Heart emojis. A few not-so-subtle digs at me, vague mentions of toxicity, of finally escaping a bad situation. She was rewriting the narrative. Right in front of me. And the world was eating it up. That was fast, I muttered, staring at the screen like it might explode. Marcus's mouth twisted in something that was definitely not a smile. She's controlling the story, he said. If you say nothing, people will believe it. I don't care about people, I said, meaning it. I care about winning. Marcus leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Good, he said. Because this is going to get ugly. An hour later, it did. I got a text from my boss. Short. Cold. We need to discuss some concerns about your conduct. HR will be involved. I sat there, phone in hand, knowing exactly what had just happened. Madison had sent the photos to my workplace. She was trying to destroy not just my marriage, but my entire life. Not for revenge. Not for anger. Just because it was convenient. Because it was part of her exit strategy. Because in her mind, if you burn the bridge behind you, it means you never have to worry about going back. I put the phone down, feeling the first real surge of fury rising through the numbness. A pure, clear rage that didn't cloud my mind but sharpened it. She wanted a war? She just declared it. And for the first time, I wasn't going to play defense anymore. By the time I left Marcus's office, the version of me that Madison thought she knew was gone. I wasn't the man who would sit quietly while she gutted my life and smiled for the cameras. I wasn't the man who would apologize for sins I didn't commit just to make the screaming stop. She wanted a spectacle? Fine. She would get one. The first thing I did was call Tessa, the woman in the fake photos. She picked up after 2 rings, her voice cautious. Hey, everything okay? No, I said bluntly. Not even close. I need you to be honest with me. Did Madison or someone she knows ask you to meet with me that day at lunch? Were you told to get close to me? A pause. A long one. Then a low breath. God, Tessa said. I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. Tell me, I said, voice like stone. Tessa's words tumbled out fast, like she was afraid if she didn't say it all now, she'd lose her nerve. Madison reached out a few months ago through my husband's sister, she said. She said she wanted to catch you in something. She offered money. I didn't take it. But she hinted that if I just happened to meet you for lunch, she'd make it worth my while later. I leaned back against my car, feeling the world tilt again under my feet. So you didn't take the money, I said slowly. But you still agreed to meet me. It was just lunch, she protested. You talked about work the whole time. I thought it didn't matter. I didn't think she would twist it like this. I closed my eyes. It didn't matter what Tessa thought. Madison had gotten the pictures she wanted. Reality was irrelevant. I thanked Tessa coldly and hung up. 1 betrayal. 2 betrayals. 3. By now it didn't even sting, it just fueled the fire building inside me. The second move I made was smarter. I called a private investigator, Daniel, a guy Marcus knew personally. Someone who didn't care about feelings, only evidence. Within an hour, Daniel was hired to follow Madison and Nate, document everything, pull financial records, and dig up anything that could turn her shiny little love story into a demolition site. If Madison wanted to play dirty, I would show her what it looked like when someone who had nothing left to lose fought back. The third move was personal. I went back to the house. Not to talk. Not to scream. Just to observe. When I pulled into the driveway, Madison was there, standing on the porch with Nate, laughing about something, her whole body tilted toward him like a sunflower chasing the light. She spotted me. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, she didn't smirk. She didn't wave. She stiffened, just a little. Like maybe, just maybe, she realized she had miscalculated. I got out of the car slowly, not rushing, not making a scene. I walked up the steps, each one deliberate, heavy with the weight of what I was about to say. Nate shifted, clearly uncomfortable, like a kid caught sneaking out of detention. Hey, man, look, he started, hands half-raising. I ignored him completely. I looked straight at Madison. You have 24 hours to vacate, I said flatly. My lawyer filed the papers. Temporary restraining order request is pending. Asset freeze initiated. Surveillance installed. Her mouth opened, shock flickering across her face before she masked it with forced boredom. You're bluffing, she said, crossing her arms. I smiled, the kind of smile that comes from seeing the cliff edge approaching and knowing you're not the one about to fall off it. Test me, I said. She stared at me for a long second. And then, in a move so petty, so perfectly Madison, she turned to Nate, grabbed the front of his shirt and kissed him hard, right there in front of me. A performance. A challenge. A middle finger in lipstick and teeth. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just turned, walked back down the steps and drove away without looking back. Let her think she won the moment. Because the war wasn't going to be won in stolen kisses or Facebook posts. The war would be won in courtrooms, in banks, in public records. And when it was over, Madison wouldn't just lose the marriage. She would lose the story she was trying to write about herself. And all the pretty lies she stacked so carefully would come crashing down in a way she would never recover from. The next 72 hours moved faster than any day of my life. Daniel, the private investigator, worked like a machine. By the second night, he sent me a batch of files so detailed they felt radioactive. Photos, videos, financial transactions. Turns out Madison's new golden boy, Nate, wasn't some accidental rebound. He was a co-conspirator. Someone she had been funneling money to for months through fake consulting services, trying to hide assets before filing for divorce. She wasn't planning to walk away with half. She was planning to walk away with almost everything: house, savings, retirement funds, all wrapped in fraudulent paperwork she'd carefully lined up like dominoes. But now I had it all. In black and white. Irrefutable. Marcus moved fast. He filed emergency motions to freeze every account connected to her. He filed fraud allegations with evidence attached. And most important, he filed motions to have her removed from the house immediately on grounds of malicious intent and financial endangerment. By Monday morning, Madison's carefully built fantasy started showing its first real cracks. She tried to call me. I let it go to voicemail. The first message was casual, breezy, her pretending none of this was happening. Hey, can we just talk? It doesn't have to be messy, you know. We're adults. The second message, 3 hours later, sounded colder. You're being ridiculous. You're not gonna win. Just back off before you embarrass yourself. The third one, left around midnight, was pure venom barely disguised as panic. I swear to God, if you keep pushing this, you'll regret it. I'll tell everyone what you're really like. You think I don't have dirt on you too? It was almost sad. Almost. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. By the next afternoon, the court granted a preliminary order. She had 48 hours to leave the house. She was barred from touching any shared financial accounts. She was banned from making any statements publicly that could be considered defamatory. It was a full hammer drop. And for once, she couldn't just smirk her way out of it. The first I saw of her after the order was served was when I returned to the house with a police officer to supervise her moving out. Madison stood in the driveway, arms crossed, face a mask of fury so raw it almost looked childish. Nate wasn't there this time. She didn't have her armor. She didn't have her audience. She had to face me. You think this changes anything? She hissed under her breath as the officer watched us both. It already has, I said calmly. She laughed sharp and brittle. I'll rebuild, she spat. I'll find someone better, richer, faster. I shrugged. Good luck, I said. Just make sure they don't read the news. Her eyes flickered, just for a second, a flash of real fear. Because Marcus had also leaked the first of the legal filings to the local media, quiet, professional, but unmistakable. Not accusations. Not rumors. Court documents. Filed. Verified. Public. The story of Madison's perfect little self-reinvention was officially cracked open for everyone to see. The officer coughed gently. Ma'am, we need to continue. Madison sneered at him, grabbed the nearest box off the porch and stalked to her car. As she loaded it up, she muttered every nasty thing she could think of under her breath: gold digger, loser, bitter little man, pathetic, the words falling like cheap coins thrown at a dead vending machine. I didn't react. Not once. Not because I wasn't angry. Because the real victory wasn't standing there with her anymore. The real victory was watching her drive away, furious, defeated, small, while I stayed right where I belonged. Home. When she finally slammed the door of her car and peeled out of the driveway, tires screeching like a cheap horror movie, the house fell into a strange, eerie silence. Not empty. Not broken. Just clean. Honest. Maybe for the first time in a very, very long time. I thought maybe Madison would stay quiet after the eviction. Maybe she'd slither off, lick her wounds, find some new story to sell to the next idiot willing to believe in her. But no. That wasn't her way. The morning after she drove away, I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications. Emails. Missed calls. Texts from old friends, distant relatives, even coworkers I hadn't spoken to in months. All of them asking the same thing, some polite, some not. Is it true? She had gone nuclear. Sometime overnight, Madison dumped a long, poisonous post on her social media. A grotesque, glittering tapestry of half-truths, outright lies, and masterful distortions. She accused me of being controlling. She claimed I was emotionally abusive. She painted herself as a broken woman finally escaping years of silent suffering. And just like that, some people, the ones who lived for drama, who didn't know either of us beyond the surface, started believing it. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, watching my name burn through social media like a slow-moving wildfire. Photos of us, old memories, twisted into weapons. Private jokes reworded into threats. Moments I had treasured turned into exhibits in a courtroom I never volunteered to stand trial in. Marcus called before I even fully absorbed it all. She's desperate, he said bluntly. She's trying to force a settlement. She knows she's losing the real case, so now she's poisoning the court of public opinion. I leaned my head back against the couch, the weight of it all pressing down on me. So what do we do? I asked. We don't blink, Marcus said. We file for a gag order. We subpoena her post history. We make it clear to the court that she's using harassment tactics. And the damage? I said. To me? Marcus was silent for a second longer than I liked. There's going to be some, he admitted. But if you hold steady, if you stay clean, the truth eventually catches up. Eventually. Not today. Not soon. I ended the call and sat there for a long time, letting it sink in. Madison wasn't fighting for love. She wasn't even fighting for money anymore. She was fighting for her own image. Because if she lost that, if the mask shattered completely, she would have nothing left. Nothing to hide behind. Nothing to sell. And people like Madison, people who lived by selling their own story, they feared nothing more than becoming irrelevant. Hours later, the PI Daniel sent me more reports. Turns out Nate wasn't just a random lover. He was married. Had been the entire time he and Madison were sneaking around. Worse, his wife had just filed for divorce citing adultery and named Madison in the paperwork. The pieces clicked together faster than I could process. Madison wasn't just dealing with me anymore. Now she was being dragged into someone else's legal disaster too. The same tactics she used to destroy me were about to tear her own life into pieces from another angle, one she hadn't even seen coming. It almost made me feel pity. Almost. That night, I stayed off social media. I didn't answer the messages. I didn't defend myself. I sat alone in the house, empty of furniture, in some rooms now hollow with the sound of my own breathing, and finally let myself grieve. Not for her. Not for the marriage. For the years. For the parts of me that had been spent trying to build something real with someone who saw me only as a stepping stone. Grief, when it's real, doesn't feel like sobbing and screaming. It feels like sinking, slow, silent, inevitable. And yet, as the hours dragged past midnight, I realized I wasn't sinking. I was standing. Maybe for the first time in a long time. Without Madison's lies propping up the world around me, there was nothing left but the truth. Ugly. Painful. But real. And real, even when it cuts, is better than living in a beautiful lie. 2 days after Madison's smear campaign hit social media, the blowback started, but not against me. Against her. The first crack came when Nate's wife, a woman named Caroline, posted her own side of the story. No drama. No screaming. Just cold, hard evidence. Screenshots of Madison texting Nate explicit messages while he was still living with Caroline. Screenshots of Madison bragging that she was upgrading and that Caroline could keep the leftovers. It spread fast. Faster than anything Madison had posted. The tide shifted overnight. Comments under Madison's poor me posts started turning hostile. Homewrecker. Gold digger. Fake. It was like watching a castle made of sugar dissolve in the rain. But that wasn't the final blow. The real hit came the next morning when I got a call from Daniel, the PI. You're going to want to see this, he said. He sent me a short video clip recorded 2 nights ago at a bar downtown. In it, Madison was drunk, sloppy, ranting to a group of people loud enough for anyone with a phone to capture. Ranting about how she played the long game with me. How she locked down the nerd first and then upgraded once the money was close enough to grab. How she knew exactly when to start dropping hints about fake abuse because the courts eat that stuff up these days. It wasn't staged. It wasn't twisted. It was her. Clear as day. Bragging about it. I forwarded the clip to Marcus within seconds. By noon, it was filed into our case, attached to motions for punitive damages, malicious intent, defamation, and fraud. By 5 p.m., Marcus sent me a single-line email. Congratulations. She just buried herself. Meanwhile, Madison's online presence was collapsing. Her friends, the ones who had rushed to defend her, started backing away, deleting comments, untagging photos. Companies she had done freelance work for in the past issued public statements distancing themselves. One even hinted at pursuing legal action for misrepresentation in contracts Madison had signed. The perfect little empire she built on lies, manipulation, and appearances? It wasn't just cracking. It was in free fall. And the best part? I didn't lift a finger. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need theatrics. Madison did it all to herself. The last text I got from her, the final gasp of a drowning queen, came late that night. No grand apology. No admission of guilt. Just 3 pathetic words. You ruined me. I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling nothing. Not anger. Not triumph. Not even sadness. Just the quiet, inevitable understanding that people like Madison don't get ruined by others. They ruin themselves. They plant the seeds, they water the lies, they build the tower of cards and then dance in the wind like it's never going to fall. Until it does. And when it does, when it really finally does, no one's there to save them. Not their lovers. Not their followers. Not their lawyers. And definitely not the man they tried to burn down on their way out. I deleted the message without replying. Madison was already finished. She just hadn't accepted it yet. The final court date came 2 weeks later. Madison didn't bother dressing up for it. She showed up looking hollow, thinner, pale under cheap makeup, wearing a wrinkled blazer that didn't quite hide the cracks underneath. Nate wasn't there. Rumor had it he had dumped her the moment Caroline's lawsuit gained traction. No lawyer. No backup. Just Madison. Alone. Meanwhile, Marcus and I stood at our table, calm, prepared, ironclad. The evidence we presented was overwhelming: financial fraud, false accusations, attempts at public defamation. We showed the video from the bar. We showed the money trails. We showed the timeline of her deception, all lined up in a neat, devastating chronology. The judge barely needed an hour to decide. Madison's divorce claims were denied. She was ordered to pay restitution for legal fees and damages. The prenup, originally signed under false pretenses she orchestrated, was ruled void. Everything she tried to steal, the house, the investments, even the sentimental crap she tried to claim out of spite, all gone. Stripped away. The court didn't just block her from taking my future. It handed her the ruins of her own making and told her to live in them. As the judge read the decision, Madison didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood there, blinking like someone finally waking up from a very long, very bad dream. When the gavel hit the bench, it was over. Years of my life. Destroyed, rebuilt, and ended in a single sound. Outside the courthouse, the sky was blindingly bright. I stood there on the steps for a long time, feeling the sunlight on my face. Marcus clapped me on the shoulder. "You did good," he said simply. I nodded but said nothing. What do you even say after surviving a war you never asked for? After he left, I sat on the steps alone. Madison walked past me 10 minutes later, head down, arms hugging herself like a shivering stray. She didn't look at me. She didn't say a word. And I didn't either. There was nothing left to say. In the end, there wasn't a confrontation. There wasn't a final dramatic showdown. No screaming. No closure. Just two people who had once promised forever now sharing a few silent feet of concrete, strangers again. And maybe that's the real betrayal. Not the lies. Not the cheating. Not the games. It's the brutal, empty silence at the end of it all, the realization that the person you fought for, bled for, believed in, was never really there. Just a mask. Just a hollow echo. And when the mask finally falls, all that's left is the terrible, final truth. You were never fighting for love. You were fighting for an illusion you were too blind to see through. Until now. I stood up, turned my back on her, and walked away. Not because I hated her. Not because I needed revenge. Because she didn't deserve to take one more second of my life. Not even in memory. It's been 6 months since that last day in court. The house is different now. New furniture. New colors on the walls. New air in the rooms. It doesn't smell like old memories anymore. It smells like peace. Some nights, when the wind rattles the windows just right, I catch flashes of the past, a laugh echoing down the hall, the ghost of a life that almost existed. But it passes. It always passes. Time doesn't heal everything. Whoever said that never lost something this way? Time doesn't heal betrayal. It just teaches you how to live with the scar. And scars, when you wear them right, stop being weaknesses. They become armor. I don't hate Madison. Not anymore. Hating her would mean she still had power over me. She doesn't. She's just a name now. A warning wrapped in a memory. The fallout from her collapse was worse than even I expected. Caroline's lawsuit wiped her clean financially. The companies she lied to blacklisted her. Friends abandoned her one by one. She tried to rebuild in another city according to mutual acquaintances. New social media accounts, new fake smiles, new hunting grounds. But a reputation once shattered the way she shattered hers doesn't fix easily. You can change your address. You can't change the truth. And me? I'm not the same man who walked into that marriage, stupid and wide-eyed, believing that love and trust were enough. I know better now. Trust is earned, not given. Love is an action, not a story you tell yourself to sleep at night. And betrayal, real betrayal, doesn't just come from cruelty. It comes from letting the wrong person stay too close for too long. The lesson I learned, the one I paid for in blood and bone and sleepless nights, is simple. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Not after the second excuse. Not after the third apology. Not after the 20th promise. The first time. Because if you don't, by the time you finally open your eyes, the damage will already be done. You'll be standing in the ruins of your own life, trying to remember when exactly it all started slipping away. And the worst part? It'll never be one big moment. It'll be 1,000 tiny ones. All the little betrayals you ignored, the gut feelings you smothered, the doubts you silenced. All leading to the same place. The end. So if you're reading this and you feel even a sliver of that doubt, that chill under your skin that says something isn't right, listen to it. Listen and act. Because sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do isn't fighting for love. It's walking away from it. Before it burns you down with it.